Hello, I'm Charles Kruger, the Storming Bohemian, and I'm here interviewing folks from the People's Show who are visiting from England. One of the longest running theatre companies really in the world, which is a pretty gosh darn impressive kind of accomplishment.
Or not.
It really strikes me. And I want to start with you, Mark, because you're one of the founding members.
Yes.
Let's use your full name, Mark. This is Mark Long, who's one of the founding members of the People's Show, going all the way back to 1966.
Correct.
That's almost 50 years.
It is. We will be having our 50th year show in 2 years, a year and a half.
2016.
We're hoping, but something we've always wanted to do is a full-scale pantomime. Never been able to afford to. Never wanted to do a budget one. To do the whole shebang, and we're hoping that's what we're going to do for our 50th year, to do a full-scale People Show version of pantomime.
That ought to be something.
Yeah, Robinson Crusoe. What do you think? Do you like that story? Yeah.
Yes, that would be perfect.
Yeah.
And no doubt outrageous. I want to put you in a time machine and go back to 1966, because that was an incredible time in English theatre.
It was. I mean, it allowed something like us to happen.
Well, you were just starting out, and you decided to do something extraordinary. Can you sort of put us back in your mind then? What was the theatre like, and what made you decide to start the People's Show? What were you looking for? What did you want to do?
Retrospectively, these things become incredibly deep and philosophical and ideological, but actually at the moment of time, it wasn't particularly, it was just the state of circumstances. I mean, theatre in England there was only theatre. It was proscenium arches. There was one professional studio theatre, which was Stephen Joseph's in Manchester and then subsequently in Stoke, or the other way around, I can't remember. But everything was pros-arch, theatre reps, and there was no such thing as theatre groups, there was no such thing as studios, and there certainly was no such thing as site-specific, as it's now described, theatre. And theatre was predominantly consisted of theatre directors and actors and designers and writers. And we were a bunch of artists, as much as we were performers. And the very first thing we ever did was, there was a band at that time called, I think they were called Pink Floyd. And, yes. And they were doing a gig in Notting Hill Gate. And at that time there was a word that had come over from the States to England, the word happenings. I don't know if that rings any bells.
Oh, yes.
And we were all living in a colony of artists, and they asked one of us if we could do something to bring their show on, raise the curtain, if you like. And so a bunch of us devised a show to open up this thing with Pink Floyd, and we liked it. And it consisted, I think there were 2 painters, 2 sculptors, a couple of us who were performers, and we did this thing and thought, this is good, let's do this again. And we then subsequently did a show in the basement of Better Books, which was a bookshop in Soho, London, an alternative bookshop, if you like. And we did a show in this basement, and the show itself was called The People's Show. It was an exhibition of people by God. And we thought then, it went very well, it was sold out, 2 nights, only held 50 people, not so hard. And if you ask people now, the number of people who told me they saw that show was like about 100,000. I know.
If I had seen that show, Mark, what would I have seen?
You would have seen an exhibition of people by God, and you would have seen some text written by really the founder of the People's Show, a man called Jeff Nuttall. And there was some written text, quite a bit of improvisation, but it was primarily a visual piece. And it was visually, at times, considered at that time fairly shocking. Now it would be completely Walt Disney, but then it was.
Can you paint a picture in words for me? I'm Mrs. Grundy. I walked into a bookstore to see a
it would be very difficult to be painted with a picture in words. What would shock you is some of the language would shock you. Not now, it would be completely non-shocking. The fact of dragging sort of meat out of stuffed bodies was considered then to be fairly shocking.
Dragging meat out of stuffed bodies?
Yeah, nothing. And some of the sort of confessional nature of the show would have been considered now totally indulgent, but then was considered quite revealing, if you like. The performers were relatively emotionally naked. They weren't like actors, because most of us weren't actors. And it was very different. And it was picked up, and at that time, you know, the whole burgeoning pop scene and fashion scene and rock scene in London was just, you know, it was worldwide, really. And everybody wanted to know. And we were there at this perfect moment. And so we did another one 2 weeks later, called it number 2. And that's how it took off. And it was, in that environment, in that climate, it was not hard work. You know, we weren't having to go out and look for money. You know, people wanted to give us money. People wanted to see our gigs. It was, you know.
Well, it was something very raw. At a time when theatre was very profitable.
Exactly.
And here you were emotionally naked, you were throwing meat around on the stage, you were working with it.
We were expressing what was being expressed in music and you know, pop music. We were around what was being expressed in the art scene in London. We were around what was being expressed in the fashion scene. But it wasn't being expressed in theatre at all.
That's my big question. Why not? Why wasn't it?
Because it was still considered, theatre was considered a very text-based art form at that time. And that's not what we were. In fact, the most text-based piece I think we've ever done is the piece we're doing here on Thursday. Possibly. Strangely.
I want to point something out, because this is fascinating to me. Right now, the idea of non-text-based theatre is considered the avant-garde.
Still.
In 2013, it's considered the new avant-garde. If we look at the theatre magazines, talking about company-produced plays, developed pieces, they call them, created pieces by a group of performers without a playwright, developing it as they go along to create something is considered the avant-garde in theatre, as is site-specific.
Well, so that is extraordinary, because we were born non-text, and we were totally born site-specific. We didn't perform in a theatre for at least 3 years, I think.
This is an incredible thing.
Yeah, and the phrase site-specific didn't exist, of course.
Could you explain for people that...
No, somebody else should explain now.
What exactly... I'm certainly going to move to the other cross. You are the old-timer here.
Yes.
And I want people to have a sense of who you were and what you did, and then you can talk about how you guys got attracted and got drawn into this. Because I'm suspecting that you probably come from theatre and acting backgrounds.
No.
Well, that's going to be interesting. Tell me what site-specific is.
Well, site-specific is to do a show designed specifically for a specific space that usually is not a theatre. That's site-specific. So as soon as you go outside of the theatre, and this is the important part about site-specific in a way, is it's not transferable to another space. It's made specifically for a specific space. And it is now fairly abused, because what started to happen was that people started to very deliberately go to working class spaces, where the middle class didn't exist and didn't go to, so they had to be bussed in. And so then this thing started to turn a corner that was difficult to relate to, in a sense. The whole raison became elevated to a level which, you know, certainly the people show would never perform at. But that is the danger of it. And it has happened, largely. Yeah. And it also has become very expensive to put on. Because as soon as you start making it sophisticated, you have to bring in entire sound rigs, entire lighting rigs, 500 technicians, and this is becoming very, very expensive. It's not, oh, well, we can only afford to do a show at a bomb site with candles. It's something else altogether.
And then you've got health and safety within that now, and security, it's all that.
Yeah, I was going to say that sometimes I'll go to a site-specific performance, and there's all these technicians, and there's all this theatrical magic. And really, it's just the theatre at large, the traditional theatre at large. It's not in the space at all.
So joining little theatres together, which you sort of walk around.
Yeah.
In England, they did in the festivals. They did this thing called Latitude Festival, which is like a big pop festival. It used to be, it's literally. And they made a theatre space in there. And it's the idea of site-specific in the head that theatre, you're outside, and all it is really is a theatre in a tent. It's exactly the same. So it's not, you know, and they do plays. You know, plays come there, and it's exactly the same setup. And you're thinking they don't reference the festival where they are or the outdoors. It's really rare. You know, it's really unusual.
Whereas you performed in a telephone box, a petrol station.
Oh,
You know that's a box that you pulled out to sea.
Yeah.
That would be good. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
But then, you know, without being... I've forgotten the name of that show now. But Peter Brook, and you know, we used to know Peter quite well, and he was quite aware of our work. You know, in fact, when he was at the BAM in New York, we were at Le Mans at that time, and he came to see us, and you know, we sort of... But for example, he did a show in Morocco. I can't remember the name of this particular piece of music, but he did a show in the mountains of Morocco. And most probably you know about this, Charles, because you're clearly well informed. But he flew the entire audience into Morocco, did this show, and they all had to sit on carpets as the sun came over these mountains and did this gig. Well, I would put it that anything would be terrific in those circumstances. I mean, if somebody flew me to Morocco, put me on a carpet in a hotel and asked me to watch something, I would applaud. You know, it'd be difficult to go wrong, really.
Yeah.
Yes, good. And the sun is a wonderful set piece. I had tried to edit this, I'll share, but I was a student at UCI at the time when Bukowski was there. Keith Fowler did a piece called Sea Warriors about the ending of the Japanese Empire. And he staged it so that at the very end of the piece, all of the audience was standing out in the field on the crest of the hill, looking west. And these young actors knew who were kamikaze pilots, and they created the painted their movement, came running down the hill and crashing as the sun literally set at that time. And it was spectacular. It wasn't Peter Brooks, but it was a spectacular fact. The sun is really all you need. You don't need Fennells when you have the sun. So I'll edit that out. Can we dial back a bit and introduce everybody else here?
This is Fiona,
Okay.
who started, if you're interested in the seeds of their creative lives, as a dancer.
Okay, so Fiona, could you tell us first where you were when you first encountered the People's Show? I mean, where you were professionally and creatively. And what attracted you to this? How did you wind up?
Well, I was a dance company, dance theatre. So I mean, it was also kind of devised work that was more based in dance, but we still spoke a bit, and there was still a story and narrative and characters, but it was basically I'm trained as a dancer. So I first saw the People Show in 1984, and it was the George Khan show in the Albany and Deptford in London. And my colleagues in the dance company took me, because they all knew each other. And to cut a long story short, we all trained with an older guy called Johnny Hutch, who was an acrobat, an Arab acrobat, and toured for years in vaudeville and toured the world basically as an acrobat. Very creative man. And my dance company trained with him, and the People Show trained with him. So my colleagues took me, and I was blown away, loved the show, laughed and just loved it and adored it. And that was 84, and then I think 1992, Mark and Jessica, and they wanted to make a ballroom show, ballroom dancing, a story set in the world of ballroom on the time when disco was taking over. And Mark called me up because he wanted someone to play Wallflower, who was this character in the ballroom. And he just called me up, and I was over the moon. And then I always say that once you go in the People Show and you never go out again, you always stay. So that's how it happened. And then anyway, I started to move a bit from dance, a bit more into verbals, and you just kind of evolve, and you can be brave and daring in the People Show and try loads of stuff you've never done before. Express, make a show and use whatever you need to express it. That's what you have to learn. That's it, really.
Gareth Brierly.
Thank you. I came to the People Show. I'm one of the youngest ones, really. So I came to the show in 2002, and I always worked so I always made my own work, even though I was an actor. So I always started making my own work when I graduated. And so I was aware of the People Show, and even in the other companies I work with, in their kind of, you can use that word, I think you said experimental, but in the other word for it, alternative theatre scene, those companies. And I think I came in for a project, and I think Jess and Bernadette in for Baby Jane back in 2002. And I was a bit different. I think I just came in, and I think we had
I think you were recommended.
yeah, and then did the project, and they've been there ever since. And like Fiona said, once you're in the People Show,
You're not allowed to.
and it's great because you meet, and also the great thing is you meet in that kind of lovely, all the people that we had at the time, all the people we met there, it's been a really, the last 10 years, fantastic group of people to work with, and we're very close, and all different disciplines, and it's been lovely. We've done a lot of shows and lots of
You learn from each other,
Yeah.
in that work, you learn about different disciplines. So we're kind of building a language together, but in lots of different disciplines.
And the shows they're always about the people who are in the room making the show. Whatever they bring, and sort of it all gets melted together. That's what makes it. That's why it's unique, I think.
Yeah, because this is a very small representation of the People's Show. Maybe we should make that clearer.
Yes.
I mean, we have a solid core of 8 people, and outside of that, we have maybe 20, 25
Yeah.
more people, you know, who are regulars, if you like.
Yeah. And then there's a group of about 1,000 people who have done
Who owe
shows.
us. And this is Jessica.
I was just going to say, we have a short introduction to make.
Hello.
Hello, Jessica.
So I trained as a designer, and basically that's what I do.
That's the actual
I'm a theatre designer, and if I'm not working People Show, I do, I do proper theatre. I do a bit of Shakespeare and a bit of, Chekhov and all that sort of thing. So I joined People Show I'd never seen them. I think I'd heard of them. I think I was at Nottingham when I was at college, and they were playing somewhere. I thought, I should go to that, and then I didn't. And then I was I left college, and I was rehearsing in this. We had studios in Bethnal Green in London, and I was rehearsing there. And Shaheen, who's another member of the group, came into the room and said, "Oh, we need someone to do some sound and operate some sound on our next show." And I went, "Yeah, all right, I'll do it." And that was it. And I did a little bit of sound and Reebok tunes, and then I poked a dress out of the wardrobe and did just backstage stuff. And then the next one I did, I was sort of stage managing, and they put me in a dog costume. They said it was rites of passage, and they lied. And then the next one they let me write and design. So it kind of, just sort of grew from that.
So I'm actually, after all these years, this has not become in any way institutional.
No.
Unfortunately.
Really?
Not really. It makes survival more complicated.
Does it help the culture of the company, though, that you're not?
Of course. I mean, I think the one thing one could say, John, when people ask me what's changed, that people always ask me a lot. And in a sense, the answer is nothing, I'm glad to say. The spirit is absolutely identical to what it was when we first started, which is a group of artists, bring all the different things from all the arts. We are a magpie into the pot.
That strikes me, given your reputation and the many places that you've been, and we'll get into that, because certainly, if not mainstream, you've certainly had ties with really the leadership of the English theatre over the years. You mentioned Peter Brooks, you've done workshops at universities all over England, you've been tied to the major schools, you've been acquainted with and kissing cousins with major companies, and yet you have remained this scruffy sort of 60s, sort of off the wall, outside the box.
Jessica didn't like that scruff.
Well,
sometimes it's scruffy.
if you've been around in the 60s, you'd like scruffy. Scruffy's good.
We smarten up now and again, I think we get excuses in scruffy.
By scruffy, I mean that it's not formal and institutional.
No, I take it as a compliment.
Yeah.
Well, my question is, how on earth did you accomplish this? There must have been opportunities, there must have been pressure to to go for the big funding, to establish a regular house. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can happen.
I think whenever we've run up anywhere near that kind of thing, none of us have liked it or enjoyed it, and we've always shied away at the end and learnt, don't want to go there again.
Well, it's almost because it's almost like you're being forced into some sort of shape that you don't fit in. You know, it's like there's a hierarchy, I think, that often exists in that sort of work, that it's not interesting to us, and it would kind of change how we worked, I think. I mean, a couple of pieces, big scale pieces that we've done, we've had to work with, you know, directors, and it just changes everything, you know, so I think it's really important to us that we're in control of what
It seems as though you've been very willing to say no.
Yes, but sometimes we have been seduced. Sometimes we've created situations where we wanted to do a big piece, and in order to do a big piece we had to find a partner, and that partner would be a theatre, and they would therefore want certain amount of conformity to the, well, you need a director because we don't basically trust you, and you'll need to have a design, and we want to know what you're doing before you arrive. We never know what we're doing before we arrive. It's not what we are. And so, yes, but we have tried, and it's with varying degrees of success. I mean, we've done, you know, our major Shakespeares, and we've done our Ghost Sonatas, and with varying degrees of success. But finally, I think what's very important for us also is that, well, as you can see, is that there are no compartmentalised barriers in the people show. You're not a director, you're not a designer, you're not a dancer. Everybody has an input into all the performance, and we all help paint the one picture, if you like. And you can't do that in big organisations. I mean, with our pantomime, for example, we won't be able to afford to do that. We're going to have to find a partner. And now we're trying to rack our brains because we know that they'll want to see a script. We know they'll want to see a famous name. And they'll most probably say, and we'll need a director. And so it's going to, you know.
You all have separate career paths outside of
Yeah.
in order to
Yeah.
support this and make this possible. Yeah. Can you tell me something about that?
Well, I work
You
as a
design.
designer, and I do a bit of writing, and I work with artists as well, a bit of dramaturgy. So.
And yes, you pursue an acting career.
Yeah, and a writing career now, so that's kind of
And a writing-
yeah. So that's been always something I've done alongside, really. And it's not, you always love the people show more than anything else. And as you get older, you more you do another job, you always look and go, yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's nice to just sometimes just go and say some lines and then walk out again.
Ah.
You know, but after a while we can't. Nothing's like the people show. And nothing's like actually a group of people that you work with. So it's very hard to work with anyone else that you really, really enjoy. You know.
Sometimes you forget as well. You know, I can be in a rehearsal and there'll be a director there, and I'm there, and I'm like, well, I think we should. And it's like, ooh.
And you have to go the other way. So what you do when you're working for another job is I go the other way and I just can be completely silent. And it's a very interesting thing. So you've got a group of actors, we're all generally actors in the room and the director, they all want to say, I think it should be like this. And you go the other way, you can do exactly that. You're trying not to put your imprint on there.
And art.
Well, the answer's different for me, because I am older, and I actually enjoyed it over 30 years with the Peep Show when it was a full-time wage, every week of the year. And you didn't have to, that's all we did. We didn't do anything else. Now, unfortunately, in the economic climate now, it'd be great if that was still possible, because I think the large majority would do it full-time if we were given that possibility. So now I do some writing, but as I say, I'm that much older. So I'm not quite in a position where I'm forced to have to. And the other secret to my existence is I have a wife who works. Who is...
No follow-up questions.
She's gone.
she's here in San Francisco with us, which is great.
And Fiona?
Yeah, I do some choreography, some dance, and recently made some children's shows, adaptations, with some other people. We've written the text and the songs and made the whole thing, toured those, and I do some other shows as well that I'm in.
Will the upcoming pantomime be directed towards children? the upcoming pantomime, will that be directed towards?
Well, there's something we're talking about.
Something we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly that. It's a good question.
Conversation.
Very good question.
We can't tell you.
You
We
can't
don't know yet.
tell.
Because we don't know. It's something. It's a very good question.
We had that.
Unusual.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, that could be the
I mean, with this show, people say, is it suitable for children? There is most probably 3 minutes of it that some parents would consider unsuitable for their children. Other parents wouldn't mind at all. So it's always tricky.
Yeah, children that we know, or our own children we would bring because they're used to it all. But yeah, we would be wary of saying that it's suitable for children.
I certainly want to address this particular show to close out our time together. But I was struck by the mention of Baby Jane, the album film.
It was, whatever happened to
I'm
me.
particularly fond of it, so I'm really curious about your experiences with that. I'm a huge fan of Vic Farmer.
Yeah, we did. It's
It's one
great.
of my favorite all-time actors.
We did it, didn't we? We
Yeah.
looked. I mean, we looked at. I watched that film
We watched
so
it
many
so many
times,
times.
and every scene as well was very interesting. And it was we played with it. We were when we first did it, we were thinking of actually playing parts. And this we had this thing, and in the end, it became about these 4 individuals who were completely obsessed by the film. So they were like the fans, really, in one way to try
Yeah.
to. They're completely
They knew the whole
the
plot.
whole thing.
They could just tell you the plot in like a minute and a half. They had videos, recordings of it that they watched obsessively on stage and interacted with.
And then certain scenes did happen, they were recreated,
Yeah.
and the others would be kind of trying to help it to make it perfect.
And then they all dressed up as they were either Betty Davis or Joan Crawford in it, and we had this sort of interaction as if they wanted to kind of be the people in the film as well. So they were, all in Gareth, he made a lovely Betty Davis.
But it was about obsessive
Yes.
fans
Yeah.
more than it was about the film. But it was.
And how that actually changes that you can't really communicate with anyone else because you're stuck in this obsession. So your kind of people skills almost or maybe because you don't have people skills, you kind of get totally obsessed with something and then join this obsessive sort of group.
In one of Fringe.
Yeah, it was good, yeah.
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 You've been in the Fringe a lot.
How many times
Not
have
so
you
much
been?
recently.
I've done about 18, I think.
8?
Every time, in the last 8 times at least, I've sworn to myself I will never ever do it again.
And we had lots of return customers, I suppose.
Last time we were there, we could have done with a few more return
Yeah.
customers. Actually, we
We
got
went
a
there
bit
last
lost in the one-person stand-up comedy. And it's changed. Yeah, it certainly has. But the nice thing about this time was seeing Jim Haynes, who, without Jim, I don't think there'd have been an Edinburgh Festival, certainly on the level of week. And that was great. It was good. And we won an award this time.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
We did, yeah.
Was that for this production?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, anyway. How do you know this production? Right? This is a detective show. This is a detective show.
It's the detective show. It's performed by 3 of us. Because it had a fairly limited rehearsal period, we usually allow at least 5 weeks to devise a new show. And we couldn't afford to have 5 weeks to devise a new show. So we tried a different way of arriving at this one, and that was with emails, to actually start the rehearsal period with some form of a script, much more than we would normally. And so we thought, how should we start? And we thought, well, often with shows, if you do a show about somebody, we've done, for example, we've done a show that we did very successfully here in America was a show about Charlie Parker. We've done a show about Chet Baker. And Billie Holiday, we did the Billie Holiday show. And if you do shows about people, that is a great shortcut. You know what I mean? People already come armed with a huge amount of information. So we thought, well, let's do a show, let's do one about somebody. So we then emailed each other, who do you think this should be about? And the top 2 names between us that came up, correct me here, Gareth, I might go slightly wrong with this, were Agatha Christie, Hedy Lamarr, And after that, I think it was the sculptor, the painter Bridget Riley. Those three.
Gareth, you wouldn't know him. He's an Everton footballer, goalkeeper. Gareth.
Yes.
No, not Gareth.
No, exactly.
I don't know his name.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
And so we had 4 names, and we got it down to, in a sense, we definitely got it down to Agatha Christie, we definitely got it down to Hedy Lamarr, and geographically, we kind of got it down to Bridget Riley, because she happened to live round the corner for quite a large part of her life in Hampstead, round the corner from Agatha Christie. Also, because Bridget Riley was an artist, she was a postmodern artist, and she had a very, very good arts magazine in the 30s. And that is where our show kind of originates. The starting date of it is in the 30s. And so that was how the show started, with that as the starting point, if you like. And after that, it becomes quite difficult to describe it. Fiona is the Agatha Christie guide. But to say it was about Agatha Christie would be wrong, most probably. It's about us 4.
It's two layers. So you've got an Agatha Christie, there's a whodunit
Story,
really,
yes.
and then you've got 3 performers in a company trying to put this show on. So there's the dynamics of that, the hierarchies in between the 3 of us, yeah? Things, and that breaks down and gets worse and worse.
But it kind of follows how, a whodunit plot goes, because you think it's going one way, and then there'll be little red herrings, and then it goes another way. So there's these, they run quite parallel, the 2 worlds.
The 2 stories do it.
In between, and they affect each other.
They inform each other all
Yeah.
the way through.
Yeah.
So Agatha Christie is a character in...
No, but
No.
the tour guide. Agatha Christie lived in about 8 different places in London. And so the geography of where writers live is always very interesting, I think.
Oh, yes.
Like a walking tour.
And-
where you walk and you go, this is where she lived at that time and she was married.
San Francisco is all about the
It's a-
geography of where writers lived and lived.
Yes.
That's...
And during this tour, she bumps into this character here, who's doing a commercial for a tobacco company on Chancery Lane. And he falls in love with her. She doesn't necessarily fall in love with him. And
She likes him.
she comes to like him,
She's wary.
which is about the best you
But
can
she
do.
probably has issues.
She has a lot of issues.
Which we can't really
Yeah, we
reveal.
can't.
There are, of course, as in all good detective stories, turning points, reveal, turning point, reveal, and finally, who actually did do it.
Just do more.
And then you've got all the detectives. Well, how much can we say? Sorry. There's a group of detectives who's a bit like the Sweeney, or what's it having in America? Cagney and Lacey kind of territory. Or no, Dirty Harry or something like that, isn't it? There's that layer. And then
Well,
there's...
Starsky and Hutch get quite
Yeah,
big.
Starsky and Hutch. That's...
Ah.
Then there's
There's a lot of
Hercule
references.
Poirot. He also comes and tries to solve it. And then there's comedy kind of...
So you all do
Keystone
multiple
Cops.
characters.
Oh, yeah.
How many?
Oh, very much so.
Very much.
Yeah.
There's about
30 or
15
40,
characters in it.
Wow.
That's
And
right.
this will be staged here on the proceeding.
You're sitting right in the middle of it now.
This is it.
This is it, John. This is the
This is
set.
We designed this
I
show.
love the clue.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
there's the... You see?
Yeah,
That's the
we
set.
go.
That is the set. And the story.
But we
And there's
But we do refer to all of this.
some kind of green thing there.
Yeah.
I remember those.
But it's
Because
1976.
it's set in 1976, so this is what you're looking at. And do look at it, because it is really the only prop of value in the entire
Beautiful.
show.
Listen to
No,
it.
I'm not going to go down that road.
In England, people are using these phones again because they realise they missed that dialing, the sound, and now you can buy.
Now the sensation is marvelous.
Yeah, they're all coming back.
It gives a
Everyone
little
wants
bit of
them.
pushback
Yeah.
that a cell won't do.
So we did, and also we did this show. We made this show, which is very different for us because we normally make shows that we tour that basically would be a lorry load of stuff that we would take with it, massive sets, massive technical things. And we made this show. And we said we want to take a show that would fit into 2 suitcases.
So how did you decide to come to San Francisco? There's a story to this, because
There is. And I'm very, very glad you asked. You could have got badly told off if you didn't bring this up. Very old friend of mine, Tony Cartledge, is the producer of this show. We knew each other way back in Hampstead, just round the corner from where Agatha Christie lived in the same house as my mother. So there is a kind of dum-dum-dum-dum going on here. Tony came into the wine business here in the Napa Valley. He's kind of withdrawing from the wine business, having been in it for many years under the Cartledge and Brown label. And he is now wants to become an impresario, production company named
Lost
Hog.
Hog.
Lost Hog Productions.
Lost Hog Productions. And I think this is the first attempt he's making at trying to establish this new company, this production company. So hopefully, if this goes well, from his point of view, it will be the first of many to come, and hopefully more with us. So it is good that you
He
asked.
came over to England, and Mark invited him to see this show in Hampshire, and he came and he loved it.
Yeah.
Just loved it, and immediately afterwards said, I need to bring it to San Francisco. And we all went, yeah, well, you know. and then it's happening. So it's brilliant.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Amazing. Yeah, he's great.
So this is going to be a short run.
It is unfortunate, just this week and next week.
Here
Here
in
at
Fort
the-
Mason,
Yes,
at the Southside Theater
yeah.
in Fort Mason. A wonderful house,
Yeah,
kind of
beautiful.
small and elegant.
It's perfect for this show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hopefully people will come, because it'd be great, obviously from our point of view, but also from Tony's point of view.
But then, in the coming weeks, there's going to be a site-specific production.
Not that I'm aware of.
I thought there was going to be one at the winery. Didn't I say?
We're shipping out and we're doing another show, one show,
This,
in the
show.
Napa Valley,
In
in
the
an old
Napa Valley.
cinema. But
In an old
it's this
cinema,
show.
okay.
It's not
In Centolina.
Yeah.
Somehow I thought since you were going to the Napa Valley and the producer was in the wine business, I thought that you were going to be doing it in the winery.
Wish we were, but unfortunately no.
Oh.
Nice
But
thought.
it's, so
Maybe
yeah.
we should have a word with him.
I might have seen that in something.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I'd like to do a site-specific show in a winery.
absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
slightly dangerous.
No. It's
Yeah.
actually, it's a very good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's yours.
we're just doing one night of this show in another venue.
It's
So
a
it's not
cinema in
site-specific.
Centolina,
The Cameo Theatre.
Cameo.
Yeah.
and that's on, I think, on Tuesday?
It's Tuesday.
Oh.
Tuesday, next
First.
Tuesday, yeah.
So you want people that see this to know. They
Yes,
have the opportunity to see the show at Fort Mason,
yeah.
and they have the opportunity to see the show in the Napa Valley.
Centolina. Yeah.
And this is, how long has it been since you have been in the United States, the company?
I think it was 1994, when we were doing a show up on the North Beach, a show called Farrago, and I think it was 1994, and it's that long.
So this is quite an opportunity for
Yeah.
people
And
to,
I think the first time we came here, we played the Firehouse, and that was in the early 70s. Yeah.
I think we're winding down.
Great.
What do we want to close with?
I think that we're ready to close with, well, from our point of view, I think is come to the show, you know,
Yeah.
because it's a good show, and you'll have a good time.
It opens on the 26th.
Thursday night?
Thursday night, yeah.
Yep.
Does it have a website?
Yes.
It does.
People Show USA.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
PeopleShowUSA.com.
Yes.
Yes. So, yeah.
That's right.
All the information.
That's
All
right,
the
yes, it
information, the tickets,
Ticket
and
prices,
about the show,
time.
and reviews, and the pictures, trailers.
We are,
All there.
we are looking forward to it.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
Thank you, Charles. That's good.
Fiona, and Mark, and Gareth, and Jessica. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.
Ah.